gents and ladies. All right, it's time for another ham talk. And today, unfortunately, Samantha can't join us. She's busy with a storm system in her area, so she is otherwise occupied. Work always comes first, unfortunately, for us. Woo, banged the table. Anyway, today is an all remote. Ruth and I are up at our ranch, and we're coming at you, everybody, live off of Starlink. So this is the first test of really active on that. And Melissa is.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I'm out in Oshkosh. So we're camping, and we're gonna hit the museum and some other flying plane stuff. I'll figure it out.
There you go. And then we got Andrea, who's tooling down the highway at how fast?
I'm doing the speed limit, 70 miles per hour, at an undisclosed location in the U.S. headed west.
All right. You froze up, Andrea, but that's probably par for the course. Anyway, we're all there. You're back. We're all operating remote for this show. We've got some good activity. We had a lot of fun in the last month or so. Everybody's been on different projects. Andrea, go ahead and tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Okay, well, the big thing that we're going to have a little segment here in this show with Scott Farrell, KE4WMF, who has an impressive mobile he calls Stealth GTI. Unlike me that have this big SUV, he's got a little car loaded with radio gear, nice and clean. And so we'll have a little segment on this show. And for those who are interested, we'll have the full interview. He and I talked for about an hour and a half and a lot of details. And so you'll get the short version on the show here today and a full special to follow.
All right.
That's pretty cool. Melissa, your segment is about?
Woo! We had a tower repair party for Roger, and right there at the intro, I'll identify everybody, and we're just did some highlights for the show. But that was a hot, fun, interesting tower repair 2 days. So let's go into that.
This project was to repair the antenna system for our friend Roger W5ZL. Roger's tower at his home took a direct hit by lightning, which destroyed his 2-meter vertical, the rotor, and damaged his cables. The vertical 2-meter antenna, rotor, and all of the cables needed to be replaced, and the antennas for HF and 6 meters were realigned. The LMR 400 coax was replaced with Messiaen Poloni Ultraflex 13500, and all cables were routed neatly into the shack via the port. The 1-day project ended up being broken into 2 days due to the extreme Texas heat. And here's a shot of some of us, but not all of us. And there's Roger, 80 years young. The team consisted of Curtis, N5VLV, Riley, me, KI5ICQ, Greg, N5XO, Lynn, and Laura, KF5MZE. Not in the pick are Robert, AI5CA, and Ruth, KE5MHJ. Oh, there's Robert. So we started the day by watching Greg run himself up into a tree and then almost crash into a street sign. No, I'm just kidding. But it was pretty amusing to watch as he jostled himself in the bucket until he finally got the hang of it. We tuned the 2-meter vertical for FM. And next, we labeled all of the new cables on both ends because it turns out that that's kind of important. And Miss Kathleen stepped out to check on everyone. Don't y'all just love that shirt? It's all fun and games until it starts getting hot. As Greg and Curtis prepared to go up, it's time to start uncoiling all of the cables. Greg and Curtis began cutting the lines and pulling off that old rotor, so it was hard hat time. So check out how breezy it was on this second clip coming up. But we were definitely in a heat wave, and by about 10 o'clock, we started filling those triple digits. And with the breeze all but gone, it got crazy hot. With a heat index of 113, we ended up calling it a day, about 12:30 or so. And we decided to come back the next morning, and that day we got up to about 106. Okay, now look at this breeze. Those treetops are just a-waving. So the trees are moving, the tower's moving, the antenna is moving, the basket is moving, the crane arm is moving, and the clouds are moving. There was not one thing that was holding still and stable. You really have to have a stomach of iron to do this. During the next few images, I'll say this whole project required very careful navigation and placements. Curtis did an excellent job threading the needle, delicately squeezing his way eventually to the top and getting around those antennae, while the ground crew was responsible for helping manage the ropes and providing an extra set of eyes from all angles. And boy, did he get mad when we dropped the ball, and he had every reason to. Curtis was amazing. And, well, Greg isn't half bad either navigating that thing.
Like he's hurt.
Okay, so what all has been done?
We
so
got
far?
the rotor swapped out. The last rotor, wherever it's at, got hit by lightning. It exploded.
Yeah, it's worthless.
Yeah, so
The rotor
we've got the
changed
rotor. Now we got to replace the antenna that was lightning struck.
out? Cables are all off?
Yeah, rotor cables
no?
are rolled out,
Yeah.
all except the one that goes to the off-center fed 80-meter cut wire.
And here is our lightning damaged rotor. So we ended up bundling all the cables and sending them up, only to find out that that was a really bad idea, as each line needed to be run separately to different points at different levels. So the whole bundle came back down, and it was a really big mess to untangle before we sent each line individually. Oh, there's Ruth. Ruth and I loaded Curtis up with waters for his next trip up, and then a few more trips and a few more trips. Goodness, it was getting hot. So, again, the 2-meter vertical at the top of the tower was replaced. The 6-meter Yagi was aligned, and new cables were attached to it and the HF Yagi. Coming up, Greg takes a self-portrait before taking a seat in the front yard to start checking the rotor movement and cable supply up there. The cables had to be long enough to move with the antenna all the way around both directions, and then it could be secured.
because I've already started a certain way. Well, if I leave it long, it'll get stuck in the tower lugs. Then the pipe will get torn. There's south, and it stopped. Okay, well that's the rotor stopping. I figured out what he does. This is set up with a south end point. We're going all the way around now. Where most of these feet are out in north, we never tried that till now.
And while they were rotoring, we installed fresh clamps for the cables.
Don't like flatheads.
Nope. And this one happens to be flatheads. Kind of a booger.
I wonder if it was somebody that was helping me just put a flathead up there.
Well, since I'm the one that helped you, I don't remember putting the flathead.
I don't think you helped me doing these, putting these things up here.
No, actually, I think it was your electrician guy.
Well, I think it's just this one set so far.
Yeah, it's just the one.
Weird.
While Roger and Robert fed those beautiful new cables into the shack, the tower guy wires were reattached and tightened. Well, we really appreciate Roger renting that 80-foot lift. I would say it was a necessity for this project, and we were very happy to help Roger with his needed repairs and upgrades to help him get back on the air. Roger and Kathleen were very gracious hosts, providing breakfast, goodies, plenty of drinks, and an ice-cold house. We had fun, and best of all, we had no injuries. A huge thanks to the team of volunteers. Happy Independence, everyone. That's a wrap.
All right. Well, that was pretty cool, Melissa. I enjoyed it. And I loved some of the narration and stuff that you did.
Yeah, we had a good time. I mean, as crazy hot as it was, and hot is miserable. It just makes it miserable. It got so hot that we had to stop. It was insane. So, but besides that, it was super fun.
Yeah, the first day was 113 degrees with the heat index, 106 actual. And then the second day it was downright cool. It was only 102 actual and 116.
Right. All right.
With the heat index.
Yeah, that was good times.
All right. Yeah. Says the person who was down in the shade.
I don't know. I kind of found myself wanting to be up in the bucket in the wind.
Yeah. I got news for you, but that breeze wasn't much up there.
Right.
All right. Well, Miss Andrea, you're driving back across country and having fun. So let's go into your segment.
Today I'm here with Scott Farrell, KE4WMF, and Scott has put together a amazing mobile that I'll describe as being like if Rover had mated with a hatchback. So welcome, Scott, to the show.
All right, thanks for having me.
Your mobile, and you call it Stealth GTI. You have your own YouTube channel, and you've put together your own videos. You've built up this mobile. So let me first ask you, what motivated you to do? Where did you start?
Well, gosh, I I can't believe I'm not ready for that one. It's a weird mixture between being a car guy and a radio guy. I had always wanted to get my license, but I just wasn't studying for it. And I used to bicycle commute, so I was very heavily into cycling. And I came down with a case of walking pneumonia one year. And so during that time when I was recovering and off the bike, I decided to study for my exam. And while I was studying, I started monitoring a nearby repeater. I felt like I was getting to know these people, even though I had never talked to them. And then I got licensed, started talking to them. And then once I was well enough to ride, I didn't want to give up talking on the radio. So my first station was actually a bicycle mobile station.
Very
And
cool.
so I was known as I even had a 30-watt amplifier on one of those little Radio Shack things. And so I could get in from all over. They were pretty impressed with that. And then eventually I moved the HT to my car. And of course, an HT is just never quite enough in a car. And so I have expanded from there. So I have never had a radio set up in my house. I've always been mobile. And over time, I mean, I've got a place to set up a radio at home now, but being a mobile is just my shtick. So I keep on doing it.
Very good. And so when you started building things up onto your car, and I know I went through a process of how could I put that on my car, or how could I use that in my car? Where did you start? HF, VHF? Can you run through a quick evolution of how it came together? And we're all in your car right behind you in your background.
Sure. Well, it was always about just a dual band. Actually, did I have a dual band radio? My first radio was just 2 meters and then a dual band, but I never used 70 centimeters with it. So it was always 2 meters. And the moniker Stealth GTI is because I always hid everything. And so my very first radio was a little, I don't know if you remember the Yaesu's FT90R, but it was just little tiny, marketed as the world's smallest high-powered dual bander or something like that, but it would fit inside of my ashtray. So it was really cool. I could just close the ashtray and leave the car, and it didn't look like it had radios in it. So I really prided myself on having the capability packed into the car that I do, with everything either being quickly removable or hideable, and it doesn't even look like a radio platform. And so from there, gosh, I decided to go with the Scorpion antenna because I wanted to, I did ATAS, but I like the ATAS well enough, but because it doesn't perform very well on 2 meters, I never mounted the ATAS antenna on my car unless I was only going to do HF.
Okay.
So I decided to try the Scorpion, and that's way too big for my car, but so what? I went for it anyway. It was 2020. A lot of us got bored in 2020. And so I did the Scorpion, and it was, the goal there was I can still just slip it out of the hitch, put it in the garage, and go back to being stealth. And that was my thing for a while. And then later, I don't remember if it was your car, but between your Rover and somebody else's, I thought, gosh, if I were going to try contesting, roving is natural for me because I'm only a mobile operator. So I then went to the horizontal loops, which are I don't even know if I can point properly. So right about there on the car, I went with those. Was the fastest, cheapest way for me to get onto single sideband. And I think when I put those up, I knew I wanted to get the beams because I was heavily inspired by K5ND's setup.
I was going to ask you because it looks very similar to his setup in terms of
I knew I wanted to do that, but time and money was a factor. Production delays as a result of all the shutdowns and everything. So these loops were the fastest way to get on the air and the easiest. So because I knew I could just slap them on, no sweat, no real engineering or thinking involved with it. And so I did that. I did last year's, was it July contest, the CQ Worldwide VHF contest.
Yep.
And I had limited success. Most of it was because of my own operating practices. I was still trying to figure out how to do things. And then I knew at that point, I was wondering, what am I not hearing? Because the Yagis, a lot of people, when they think of the Yagis, they think, oh yeah, I'm going to just blast my power out and get farther, reach farther, and completely forget about the fact that those Yagis help you hear more in that direction. And so I wanted to know what I was not hearing, and that motivated me to get onto the Yagis. And so then I went to the Yagis, and I wasn't sure if I was going to run both loops and Yagis. I see that you do, and Kyle, KE4WMF, is that his call?
Yes.
He has he on his van at the time, he had loops and beams. I don't think he drove with the beams, he set them up, but I thought, okay, let me run with them both. And this friend of mine, I actually had a plan for some satellite stuff too. I was going to get some egg beaters on the car, but I don't think I'm going to use them very much. But anyway, my friend Tracy says K4WMF, she says, Scott, when you do this, you have to take at least one ridiculous photo with everything on the car. And there it is. This right here behind me is it. And I can't really operate with all of that up there, because just rotating the beams will impact the ATAS that's up there. They'll collide. And so this is just an exhibition setup. It's that one ridiculous photo, and that turned into, let me take these to Hamventions and do some exhibitions with them. And it turned out to be a really big hit. I was surprised. I hadn't been to my first one was Hamcation, and I hadn't been to a Hamvention of any sort in 25 years. And so I had no idea it was going to take off the way it did. So here we are.
Well, I can speak from experience. Unique vehicles like that certainly garner attention, and typically, I'll say there's a lot of the classic porcupine type vehicles, you know, a bunch of VHF whips just sticking out and maybe a bunch of radios. But I find vehicles like yours, mine, have a totally different, and other Rovers have totally different character, because you see it's not just a bunch of repetition, but you see different intent and use of all this different hardware on a vehicle, which I think just draws people. And then they wonder, how the heck does it survive on the road? Do you want to talk a little bit about on the road experiences?
You know, I don't, on the roads that I choose to drive on, I don't have too many problems with it. One of the common questions that I got from Hamcation visitors was, how often do you get pulled over for this? And it hasn't happened yet. Not while driving. I've been not stopped. I've been questioned by officers while I'm parked somewhere because they're curious, or they get a report of a suspicious vehicle or something, but it never goes off into anything. But I've never been pulled over, and I'm okay with that. The only time I have trouble is if I go into a park or cities. You might be able to relate to this. You know, the cities, they put in these cute little landscaping trees, and they look beautiful when they're first
Yeah.
planted, and then they grow out like this and catch the sides of my Moxon up there. They scrape up RVs and trucks and things, and those trees turn out to be a real hassle. And so I find myself dodging them. If I'm on a 6-lane divided road, cool, I get right in the middle lane. And I know now why trucks do that, because they get all beat up by the landscaping trees. And so I figure if I try to stay on the roads that the trucks can drive. If I can do that, then I'm usually okay.
Same here. Now, my local roads here in New Jersey, oh my gosh, there's so much overgrowth on the roads, and trucks at least will brush it away. But on the less traveled roads, particularly in the spring, and there's a lot of new growth, it just hangs down. And okay, what a truck may brush away will just bend elements on an antenna, as you know. And particularly if it's rained recently and those leaves are wet, that's what I
Yeah,
found.
yeah, it brings the branches down even lower.
Yeah, so it's both a hassle. What's your height?
11.5 feet, so 11 feet 6 inches.
Okay.
I suspect it's a little shorter than yours.
Yeah, my Yagis are 12 feet, the top of that, and then I got about 6 inches more whip above that, which I'm less concerned about.
Very seldom do I hit anything center of the mast. You know, I've got this one video shooting up where I go under some trees, and I mean, I hit it pretty good. Usually what happens is I scrape the sides of the Moxon, and then those little branches that just grab that thing and pull it, and then it winds up twisting it. And then I just grab I got a camera tripod, and I just reach up there and I can just move it back and get back into position. But it's usually grabbed from the sides. Very seldom do I have problems overhead, because I've gotten okay at judging height. It's the side stuff that gets me.
Yeah, okay. And obviously the Moxon it looks to me a little bit wider than your car.
It is. My car is, if I'm remembering right, it's a little over 6 feet. I want to say it's like 73 inches, I think, is fender to fender. That doesn't include the mirrors. And the Moxon is 7 feet. And so I overhang probably about 6 or 7 inches on each side of the car at the front fender. Of course, the car is narrower as you go back.
And that's about 1.5 feet above your Yagi, your 2 meter.
Oh, yes. 13 inches.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, with that up high, that Yagi is low enough to keep it out of the way in most cases, particularly if you have it stowed forward, position like I do when not using. It's just a lower drag.
Yes.
So some people may ask this question. I know the answer, but why the 6 meter Moxon at the very top, then 2 meters and 70 centimeters, rather than say the reverse order?
Some of that came from, it was something that I kind of discovered as I was putting on the loops. Those are M² loops. And so I was trying to manage my overall height with those at first. And I was kind of surprised just initially until I realized, oh, that makes sense. But they have this minimum height over the roof. And so the 70 centimeters was this much, and then 2 meters was this much, and 6 meters was the one that had to be the highest. And I was like, oh, that totally makes sense, you know, bandwidth and getting it cleared. And so I viewed it as higher frequencies have a better tolerance of being closer to the roof. And so at first, I think I might have been thinking, oh, I need a quarter wavelength, or I need a half is, I think, out of the question on my little thing. But that's what got me to going, all right, lowest frequency up highest and highest frequency down lowest, because it can tolerate being closer to the car.
Exactly. And another way to look at it too is your elevation angle or radiation is related to how far above the ground you are in terms of wavelengths, or a proportion of a wavelength. And so on 70 centimeters, it's easy to get height above the ground. 2 meters, it's more difficult. 6 meters is very difficult on any kind of mobile install. So that's why yours, mine, so many other rovers, actually, you see the lower frequency antennas up higher. And I have my microwave ones really, really low.
Yeah, I get asked that sometimes from club members why I've done it that way, because in their minds, yeah, get that UHF up as high as you can for the best line of sight. And I completely look at it as interaction or interference with the body of the car. So the higher frequencies tolerate it better than the lower ones. So yeah, 6 meters to the top.
Yeah, and in practice, when you're looking at the heights you can get on a mobile, 12 feet versus 9 feet isn't making a big difference on line of sight.
No, yeah.
And that's all the time we have right now. To see the full interview, check back in a couple weeks. We should have it posted. We've got another 45 minutes, lots of photos, lots more discussion, and us nerding out on roving. Till then, this is Kilo 2 Echo Zulu roving reporter for Ham Talk.
All right, Andrea, I understand you just had, that was a short segment, just a teaser, and you've actually got a full hour and 15-minute show that we'll be doing in about a week, correct?
Yeah, something like that, and a lot more construction details and history details of how he built up his mobile there. But he's got some, along with some more mobile footage, and for those who found that interesting, go check that one out.
All right.
Neat.
Well, yeah, that was pretty good. I was impressed with his Rover setup and everything, and I'm looking forward to seeing the full length interview. So I'm really looking forward to that.
I'm actually I found myself thinking today about putting something on my RV. Like, I could get this set up.
Yep, really.
Batteries. I got my batteries.
And you don't even need a microphone. So, all right. Well, it's been fun up here at the ranch house. Yesterday or Saturday, we got up here. Man, it was nice and comfortable. It was 104 outside, and it was nice and cool, 73 degrees inside. It was wonderful. And actually got so cold because we forgot to turn the AC up when I went to bed that I woke up about 3 o'clock with a big leg cramp. Then yesterday, we were not able to stay more than about 20 degrees below the outside ambient temperature. Yeah. And today, the AC system came up and started flashing a out of coolant thing. And I went and checked, and apparently with all this heat and the high pressure, it blew a seal on the fitting. So
is it under warranty?
It was installed by me. That might be why it broke. No, they're mini split systems, multi-head mini splits, and no warranty thing. It's got to have the seal fixed and redo it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I found oil all around the fitting, so that's the good news. That means it'll be an easy, quick repair, recharge it. It's just I've got to go get coolant and
okay, good. Well, I'll keep my fingers and my toes crossed.
All right. All right. Well, how are you going to top next your segment this month for next month, Melissa? That was a great segment. You did a fantastic editing job. You put it together well. Your narration was good.
Yeah, that was my very first time to open up iMovie, and my very first time to clip stuff together. And the audio wouldn't work on the iMovie, so I had to use an external and then add the audio into the show. And so, yeah, that was an experience.
All right. Andrea, real quick, before we go ahead and call it a night, you want to tell us a little bit about your main hour-long show that's going to be coming up in a few days?
Well, yeah, as we just had in the segment here, it's just going to be more of that material, and we're going to look at the construction and the history and some of his inspiration to put that together. Scott's very interesting when he talks, and I gave him plenty of time to elaborate with his setup.
All right.
Good.
Well,
good.
Let's go ahead and roll into my segment. We're going to discuss putting on hardline connectors today. So roll that beam footage. Welcome to another HAMster Weak Signal Group technical tutorial. I'm N5XO, and I'll be taking you through the process of installing hardline connectors. If you're a HAMster member, or if you've been following our training courses at local clubs and events, then you are aware of the high level of importance myself and the HAMster group places upon high quality feed line and maintaining total losses on your antenna feed line of 1 dB or less. On my personal station, I have followed or exceeded the 1 dB rule very strictly, and with that rule in mind, I run hardline for all of my antennas. 1/2 inch hardline on my 80 and 40 meter dipole, 10 to 20 meter log periodic, as well as my 6 meter array. As I step up in frequency, I run 3/4 inch hardline for 2 meters and 1.25 meters, and 1 5/8 for 70 centimeters and 33 centimeters, with 2 1/4 for 23 centimeters. Most hams that I've worked with are afraid of hardline connectors and avoid using hardline out of concern on installing of the connectors. Once you do your first hardline connection, you'll find quickly that they're much easier to install than expected. The tools for installing hardline are pretty straightforward. A couple of wrenches, a razor knife, small hacksaw, and if you're going to be doing a lot of hardline on a regular basis, or your local club is, I would recommend investing in some hardline prep tools. These make the job so incredibly easy and fast and perfectly prep the hardline in seconds to install the connector. I've owned the 1/2 and 3/4 inch connector for several years. Unfortunately, I purchased the 1 5/8 after this initial project, so I didn't show how to use it. But we'll do a quick how to use tutorial in a future video. Take a look at the end of the hard line. Take note of the damage done to the copper shield. This happens from pushing too hard upon the hacksaw. This was done as we cut it off the large spool to the proper size and length that we needed for this project. The next cut shows a smooth, light touch with the hacksaw and a clean, workable surface, so be sure to use a light touch with the saw. Using the razor knife, or better yet, your hardline prep tool, expose the copper shield. I'll not go into the exact measurements as this changes with the hardline size and type and brand of connector. Expose the amount of shield and install the O-ring, followed by the compression ring. With the ring in place and with a gentle action on the hacksaw, cut the end of the hardline off clean against the clamp. Using a razor knife, clean out the outer edge of the foam to allow a clean seat for the connector. Depending on the type of connector, you may need to flare this outer copper jacket slightly, as we did here. Install the center pin of the end connector by screwing it into the center hole of the hardline cable, and then using an Allen wrench, turn the lock and lock it into place. Take the large O-ring, lube it with provided grease, and slide it onto the threaded portion of the connector. This seals any moisture from getting into the connector and also into the feed line. Slide the main housing of the connector onto the feed line. It'll lock in place with the compression ring. Then take the screw cap portion of the connector and thread it onto the main cap. Using channel locks and a wrench, tighten it up firmly, but do not over tighten it. Once completed on both ends, measure the cable into a good quality dummy load and test for a 1:1 SWR and 50 ohm impedance. If the cable tests properly, then we're ready to finish it up with the heat shrink. Now you're ready to wrap up the project. Slide the heat shrink over the connector and the hard line, and then slowly begin heating the heat shrink until it's got a tight fit seal all the way around. Seal it first on the hard line and then work your way back to the hard line, and that way it'll leave no bubbles and stuff, and it'll have a tight seal all the way through. Once that's completed, you're 100% done with your hard line and ready to run it up the tower and into your shack. All right. Well, I hope everybody found that segment on hardline connectors and stuff useful. And
I was going to say your segments are always so informative.
yeah, you're a kiss, you know what? But I appreciate you. All right. Well, anybody got anything else to throw in?
Other than
No.
I haven't been in that kind of heat that you have had. So
Oh my God. It was a heat index of 118 when I left. So when you were saying what, Greg, yesterday, 106 or 108 or
It was 102 yesterday, ambient temperature, and I think the heat index was 116.
I don't miss it. It's 73 degrees here with winds at 11. It's fantastic.
Yeah. We need this high, I'm torn. The high pressure zone's really making 2 meters a lot of fun. The
Yeah.
high pressure zone is really making life suck.
well, what I did get experience was smoke from the Canadian fires.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yep.
When I went up to New Jersey, the day I got up there, the day before, the day I got up there, it got pretty bad. Not as bad as the first time it had happened, but I have to be thankful because I was coming across the southern states and my air conditioning in the car was not working, and I was in Tennessee, and suddenly this haze came over, and boy, did that cut down the sun, and made it just enough cooler that the air conditioner worked in the car.
Are you in the Rover or the Bronco?
But I was
Are you in Rover or Bronco?
The Rover.
Rover.
Oh, okay. I was going to say the Bronco's new enough, it might have cabin filter.
Yeah, maybe.
All right.
Yeah, it doesn't seem it doesn't seem to be hazy where we are. Of course, I haven't gotten out and looked a lot at the moment, and I haven't been paying too much attention, but we just went to the Harley 120th homecoming, and yeah, it was smoky. And the locals were saying, no, it's not smog, it's not filth or anything, it's the Canadian fires. So I was like, oh, now I know why my eyes are weeping.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I always wanted to fly into there and attend that show, but we never did.
I don't know oh my gosh, I couldn't imagine flying into this event. There's so heavy traffic, heavy.
Yeah. Well, we never did, but it was something I always thought would be fun to do.
Yeah.
All right.
I've only been to Oshkosh for work, so there's a truck manufacturer there, and that's what I was up for.
Yeah. All right. Well, ladies, let's go ahead and I'm just not knowing how to act. I'm not getting picked on, insulted, or abused by Sam at all. I'm not sure what to do.
It always feels not complete when Samantha's not here.
You got to have the whole team all the time. All right. Well, with that, let's let Andrea go back to her driving and concentrating so she doesn't die. And tell Riley hello, Melissa. And Ruth says to tell everybody hi. So we'll go ahead and wrap up Ham Talk. And looking forward to seeing the big special in about a week and a half, 2 weeks.
Cool.
Andrea. 73.
Bye.
Bye.